Sabrina 70s comic, issue 43. Sabrina's told by Hilda that she'll have to finish taking inventory of her magical artifacts herself because she has to rush off to a witches' convention. And yet Sabrina has to stay? I guess because of her age. She sees a jar of magic pills, and each pill supplies 1 hour of magical powers. Why does Hilda have these? Why does any witch have these? It's like they're only there to have a plot around. They already have powers themselves. Sabrina spills one of the pills into Salem's bowl and wants to cover up the jar before she could spill it again. Salem tastes the pill and gets magical powers. So that comedy page where he has magical powers too isn't canon. Either that, or this isn't canon, because in the 70s cartoon, Salem had powers without needing to have a magical pill burst. Why does he have human thoughts if he's not a magical cat? He wishes Sabrina wouldn't keep his dish where his tail can get stepped on, and the dish moves, granting his wish. Sabrina reacted as if she could understand what he was saying in an earlier issue, so why doesn't he just tell her this? He has a rational assumption for why this happened, I guess. He thinks that it came from hanging around those witches, and some of their powers must have rubbed off on him. Those witches. So he's not a witch himself, never was. He goes to the fish market and brainwashes the guy behind the desk into giving him fish. Then he's generous enough to make sure that the stray cats get some caviar. Then the radio alerts the citizens to an escaped tiger, and Salem hates a tiger because he somehow thinks he's given cats a bad name, so he casts a spell so that he can punch the tiger away, and the other cats have human thoughts too. So he's just a regular cat, and all the cats have human thoughts purely so we can understand them as the audience. It's just needlessly confusing since Salem could talk in the 90s for a special reason. Salem feels weak as he's dragging the tiger by the tail because his magic is wearing off. And after he leaves the tiger here to be picked up by the zoo, he stupidly risks trying to hit the mean dog and gets attacked, which you'd think would have killed him. He's lucky he's merely injured at the end. As Sabrina says, he's lucky that he knows nothing about the world of magic. Why did she think that when magic would be happening in her house all the time? So it would obviously happen in front of him. The sitcom had Salem way better. In the next story, Harvey's sad because he's a failure at sports, a complete contrast to the Harvey from the show. Would it kill the comic to give Harvey even one redeeming quality? The show sure was nice Sam compared to this comic. It takes a bit too long for Sabrina to get to do something here. She casts a spell to make him really fast with a powerful throw that gets him put in the baseball team. He was in it. Someone in the team who gets replaced by Harvey shoves him, and Harvey outruns him and shoves him. Because bullshit, Harvey, calling her a kid, decides to break up with Sabrina now because he has to stay in training to maintain his perfection in sports, showing what he really cares about. And surprisingly, the story ends there. I'm guessing she undoes the spell after this, so that they go back to dating. But why didn't they show us that? It's not funny, so it's not a good ending. They could have easily made room. It would have made more sense if Sabrina realized to be unfair to the other players if Harvey was such a great player, purely because of his spell. And that was why things went back to normal. If Harvey has a confidence boost, he wouldn't think he needs training at all. In the next story, Sabrina happily tells Hilda that the neighborhood children want her to be in their circus. She just wants to take a nap, and sadly she frightens the kids off for their tantrum. Well, the only circus act she would do would expose magic and get Della to nag her, so it makes sense to say no. Instead, Sabrina sides with the kids, saying that they've been working hard and wanted Hilda to be the star headliner in the show. This changes Hilda's mind, and she flies around on a broom impressing people. Instead of Della showing up to nag her out of permanently staying with the circus, or at least nag her about this, she flies into the tree because she was looking at them while trying to do a double roll loop. So the story ends with Hilda being put on the sofa, and despite her being dazed, the kids are still in a good mood, instead of worried about her, and expect her to be in the next show in an hour. Somehow their audience loved the finale instead of being horrified at her getting hurt. I guess she quit the circus after that one failure, where Della talked her out of it. A lot of people's memories would have to be erased to hide the existence of witches after that event. Sure, no one would believe the kids about it, and I guess that's why they thought they could get away with it. In the next story, someone looking for a sale empties his jar of termites around Sabrina's door and rings the doorbell. So he scares Sabrina and gets out the contract. He has some stilted dialogue that's probably him reciting a script, as Sabrina thinks their house is gonna collapse, and Hilda's smart enough to be suspicious of him. Probably because the house only had that problem after he showed up. Sabrina keeps being scared the whole time instead of realizing that witches would be able to zap the termites away. Although I guess not if she doesn't know what the termites look like to imagine them. Hilda takes too long saying no before saying that the wildlife she has around here don't care for termites. Oh, she meant to say wildlife. I thought she was referencing the fact that she's a witch, because wild and life were separate somehow. She casts a spell and summons little animals that slurp up the termites. And Sabrina says they can pull termites out of 2 feet of soil, as Hilda warns him that they'd suck up his shoelaces. Hilda shows off some more other realm aliens, one of which eats the termite eaters. And Hilda scares the exterminator away, saying that there's more. So the story ends as Sabrina hugs Hilda laughing, saying that she was priceless. The first story is about Salem, who's revealed to be just a normal cat, eating some magic pills that Hilda had for no reason because Sabrina was doing inventory and lost one of them to Salem's water pool. And Salem uses its magic for just what you'd expect. At least being a Salem story was a change of pace. I guess he used his strong sense of smell to find where the fish market was. He gets the fish and is nice enough to make sure all of the other cats get to eat caviar. But after he realizes he's losing the magic, he takes the risk of antagonizing the main dog anyways and ends up injured. I like that he discovered he had magical powers because he made a wish, instead of having to point for some reason. This story was clearly written by someone who never watched the right episodes of the 70s show. The second story is about Sabrina using magic to make Harvey be the perfect baseball player. But instead status quo returning because Sabrina realizes it'd be wrong to let him cheat his way to the top, or because she realizes that he'd be exposing magic to mortals, or even because she'd think his throwing strength would injure someone or cause damage to stuff, which would get him kicked off the team right away. Instead, Harvey just breaks up with her for no reason. And the story ends there, so I have to assume things went back to normal off screen, because this comic's afraid of continuity for even 2 seconds. The third story is about Hilda joining a circus for the neighborhood kids and flying her broom in front of people, but no one seems to care about the fact that she'd be exposing magic. I guess since they're kids. And instead it's resolved by her flying into a tree one time. It makes sense if it was explained that Della summoned that tree to get her to stop. The fourth story is about a con man putting termites on Sabrina's door and trying to charge her if she wants them exterminated. And Hilda summons some other realm aliens to eat them and scare them away. It's interesting that she calls them wildlife. Of course, the monsters wouldn't be considered monsters to the witches because they're used to them. So they'd just be seen as animals. Animals native to the witch world. They had creative designs. It's always been weird to me because they weren't in the sitcom, but it does make sense that they'd exist because they come from another planet, the witch world. Of course, another planet would have weird-looking aliens in it.